Yeah, I'll react to that, sure. If you haven't seen, you probably haven't. They had to make these fake American names. I can't laugh any more than I did. My God, that was priceless. Okay, crucial test for unity. Hello, everyone. Greece in World War I. Let's go. Let's do it. I'm ready. If you aren't ready, get out.
At this point, 100 years ago, Greece was neutral and had not joined the First World War. But it was anything but a simple situation, and in fact was a dangerous time for all Greeks. And that's what I'm going to talk about today.
Let's do it, all right? Let's do it. Here, ready to learn. Let's go. We learn at my pace, not yours, which means we're going to be here for a while, all right? If I have to rewind because I missed something, I will not hesitate to do so. And as many times as I cry in the shower reading comments that say, hey, idiot, stop pausing. We didn't come here for a pause. I don't have to take anything from you. Let's go.
I'm Indy Nidell. Welcome to a Great War special episode about Greece during the First World War. Going back, the Greek nation had existed for under 100 years. Greece had been part of the Ottoman Empire for centuries, but rebelled in 1821. A decade later, the rebels achieved their goal, an independent for
That's really interesting.
under 100 years. Greece had been part of the Ottoman Empire for centuries, but rebelled in 1821. A decade later, the rebels achieved their goal, an independent Greece. That Greece, though, was tiny. Its lands had been destroyed by war, and its economy was non-existent. Ethnic Greeks living outside Greece outnumbered those within Greek borders 4-1. And the economic activity of the diaspora was quite rich. So Greek foreign policy became megali idea, the great idea, that Greeks in their ancestral lands, including Crete, Macedonia, Cyprus, Western Anatolia, the southern Black Sea shore, and so on, should one day be united. Okay, fast forward to the end of the 19th century. Greece suffers a humiliating defeat in the Greco-Turkish War of 1897. At this point, Greece is very poor, with endemic corruption. The army is in the rather incompetent hands of the palace. In the first decade of the 20th century, though, sparked by rising nationalism in the Balkans, Greek and Bulgarian irregular forces, backed by their governments, clashed in Ottoman Macedonian territory. This actually gave Greek national morale a boost, and the Young Turks Revolution in the Ottoman Empire in 1908 inspired a group of mostly junior army officers to stage a coup in Greece in 1909. The leaders of the coup then brought in the liberal politician Eleftherios Venizelos from Crete. He established the Liberal Party, the first real ideological party in Greece. A year after the coup, Venizelos won the post of prime minister in a landslide and began a massive program of reforms to the economy, the constitution, and the army. Now, over the next couple years, the Young Turks' goal of a modern and purely Turkish state caused a deterioration in the lives of Christians within the Ottoman Empire, and the Balkan nations united against the common enemy. Under British pressure, Serbia and Bulgaria allowed Greece to join their alliance, for Greece was the only one of them who had a navy and could stop Ottoman reinforcements by sea. And they fought the First Balkan War against the Ottomans. For Greece, it was a triumph, gaining the Aegean Islands, Crete, most of Epirus, and the chunk of Macedonia that included the capital, Salonika. Greece never signed any territorial spoils agreement with her allies, but Bulgaria and Serbia had. And Bulgaria did not feel Serbia honored that agreement, and the Second Balkan War broke out. Since Greece...
I wonder what the Bulgarian-Romanian relationship is. Very much so. I want to learn about that. They must have some sort of, shared culture, and but I feel like they're right on the kind of Russian Ottoman influence side, so I'm sure they had a lot to do with, or had to face a lot of conflict there, but I'd like to learn more about that.
Did not feel Serbia honored that agreement, and the Second Balkan War broke out. Since Greece had by then signed a treaty with Serbia of mutual defense, Greece fought in that war, when Bulgaria attacked them both, and Greece was again victorious. After the Balkan Wars, Greece's territory had increased by 70%, and her population had nearly doubled to 4.8 million people. There were new, rich cities and economic centers, new resources, a larger market, and a boost in national morale. But there were big problems as well. The new lands, in addition to Greeks, contained Slavs, Muslims, and Jews, whose loyalty to Greece was questionable at best. There was also a big influx of Greek refugees from Anatolia and Bulgaria. And finally, King George was assassinated March 18, 1913, placing his son, Constantine, who commanded the Greek army during the Balkan Wars, on the throne.
I also want to learn more about the Western and Eastern Orthodox church split. That'd be interesting.
Constantine, who commanded the Greek army during the Balkan Wars, on the throne. Constantine's wife, Queen Sophia, was Kaiser Wilhelm's sister, so he was, as you may guess, pro-German. When Austria-Hungary attacked Serbia in 1914, Greece, under treaty, should have helped Serbia. Venizelos wanted Greece to honor its commitment, but Constantine flatly refused.
So I don't think Prince Philip is born at this time, but wasn't Prince Philip, who would eventually, he died, I think, this past year, was the Queen of England's husband. Wasn't he a Greek royalty prior to being courted or whatnot with the Queen of England?
Venizelos wanted Greece to honor its commitment, but Constantine flatly refused. Venizelos believed the Entente had maritime supremacy and would eventually win the war, and Greece, as a maritime nation, should join them. And once the Ottoman Empire joined the Central Powers, he stated repeatedly that the war was the last chance to liberate the Greeks still in western Anatolia and the southern Black Sea coastline. Most of the officers from the 1909 coup were with Venizelos. On the other side was King Constantine, an absolutist with strong German ties who admired German militarism, was himself an honorary German marshal, and believed Germany would win. On his side was the general staff and most of the senior army officers. Also, the old political elite and the upper middle class of the old lands were marginalized by Venizelos' reform programs and the economic boom of the new lands and their bourgeoisie, and they needed the king in order to remain politically active. The church, which had huge influence, believed in divine right and was thus firmly royalist. This was the first real class and interest struggle in the modern Greek state. A big note here. Constantine did not want to join the church, which had huge influence. The king believed in divine right and was thus firmly royalist. This was the first real class and interest struggle in the modern Greek state. A big note here. Constantine did not want to join the Central Powers. Much as he supported Germany and Austria-Hungary, he knew there was no way Greeks would ally themselves with the Ottomans or the Bulgarians, and he knew Germany and Austria-Hungary could not give Greece much in return, so he favored neutrality. When planning for Gallipoli and breaking through the Dardanelles began in 1915, the Entente requested that Greece join in, promising Western Anatolia in return. Venizelos immediately accepted, but the Greek general staff declined, and Venizelos was forced to resign. So, on the campaign trail that spring, his campaign promise was to honor the Greek-Serbian treaty if Bulgaria was to attack Serbia. He won the new elections. That September, Bulgaria mobilized, and Constantine allowed Venizelos to mobilize only 18,000 men, who could only fight if Greece itself were attacked. In response, Venizelos gave the Entente permission to land troops at Salonika to aid the Serbs, aiming to bring the king to a fait accompli. In October, the parliament approved Venizelos' policy of sending military aid to the Serbs, but the king, backed by the general staff, Germany, and Austria-Hungary, denied again Greece joining the war. Venizelos was forced to resign for the second time in a year, and Alexandros Zaimis was appointed interim prime minister by the king. That was pretty dubious constitutionally. Britain then offered Greece Cyprus to join the Entente. Cyprus was 80% Greek and eager to join Greece, but Constantine declined. Public outrage forced the government to resign, and though there was another new interim prime minister, in reality, Constantine was pretty much a dictator at this point. The Liberal Party and the Socialists boycotted the next elections. Only royalists were elected, and then there was a purge of Venezuelans in the army and the state. The Venezuelans became radicalized and began advocating the overthrow of the monarchy. By this time, the Entente was well established in...
Sorry, I had to help out my beautiful mother with something, so I had to pause quick. And let's go. Sorry. Right where we left off. Go.
Established in Salonika, which was kind of an Entente protectorate, and it violated Greek neutrality. The royalists claimed that the army there would provoke a Bulgarian invasion, but Bulgarians and Germans wanted Greece to remain neutral. But eventually, they attacked Eastern Macedonia, seeing the reorganization...
You know, I hear Eastern Macedonia, I hear, you know, like I love learning countries, and Macedonia was once a legitimate answer in the country quizzes I like to play on Sporkle and Cetera. Excuse me. But, so at one point it was Macedonia, that now it's North Macedonia is the answer, and he's talking about East Macedonia. I got to learn about the Balkans in general. I've got to learn more about.
Of the Serbian army in Greece, and Constantine ordered the Greek army not to resist and to surrender the territory. In response, the Entente now considered Greece a hostile nation and demanded the Greek army disband. Venezuelist officers in Salonika, fearful that all Greece gained from the Balkan Wars would be lost, formed the National Defense Organization, and soon Venizelos himself was in Salonika and formed a provisional government. Greece was now divided into two states, and the Entente immediately supported the Salonika government. The Entente demanded that Constantine give them the same quantity of war material that was given to the invading Germans and Bulgarians, and he refused. So, British and French Marines landed at the port of Piraeus, where they were repulsed by the Salonika government. The Entente demanded that Constantine give them the same quantity of war material that was given to the invading Germans and Bulgarians, and he refused. So, British and French Marines landed at the port of Piraeus, where they were repulsed by a royalist paramilitary organization led by Ioannis Metaxas, who would become the fascist dictator of Greece in the late 1930s. His organization began a pogrom against Venezuelans, looting and pillaging, murder, arson. The church even excommunicated Venizelos. It was, in all but name, a civil war, the November events. The Entente blockaded royalist Greece, which caused a shortage of provisions that led to disease and privations. The French captured a few strategic positions in southern Greece and demanded Constantine abdicate with the threat of bombarding Athens. He did not, but fled the country, leaving his second son, Alexander, on the throne. In June 1917...
Doesn't that just shift responsibility to the son for accepting the...
Venizelos returned to Athens...
I missed the date.
In June 1917, Venizelos returned to Athens and reunited Greece as one state, toppling Constantine's regime. A few days later, on June 30th, 1917, Greece declared war on the Central Powers. I want to point out here that Venizelos' new government was also something of a dictatorship backed by the Entente, and the royalists were now the ones being targeted. As for Greece fighting in the war, I'll cover that in the regular episodes. As for Greece after the war, which was just as complicated as this and far bloodier, we'll cover that later on when the war reaches its conclusion. Let's just say that the war for Greece did not end in 1918.
If I were ever to get a tattoo, which I don't think I would, it would be, thank God for the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans.
Today was just a brief look at the events in Greece prior to its joining the war, and it's...
I'm saying that because you might think, like, what does that have to do with this? I'm saying that Greece is just one of those countries. I mean, United Kingdom is your best bet of a country where, you know, you at least have a little bit of stretch of water in between you and just a not a war-torn or war-ravaged, just a war-hungry continent for millennia. Millennia plural. What is the plural of millennia? No, millennia is plural. Millennium for millennium. millennia. But it just it seems I watched a video, I believe, I don't know if I recorded it or not, about how the United States was impossible to fail, or not impossible to fail, but once it was secured, you know, independence from Great Britain, Louisiana Purchase, Spanish American War, French and Indian War, you know, you have the perfect starting area. And it makes me thankful every time I see stuff like this, that we are separated, and that the only thing that can sort of kill the U.S. is the U.S., which nowadays doesn't seem that crazy.
Immensely complicated political situation. Big thanks to Volantis Athanasio for his help researching this episode. And if you want to see a whole episode about Bulgaria and how Bulgaria joined the war and its relations to Greece and its neighbors, you can click here for that. You can also like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter, and don't forget to subscribe. See you next time.
British Path, great.
We're here in Przemyśl, Poland at the Przemyśl Fortress Museum.
Oh, this is the next episode. All right, guys. See you next time. Doing Romania next.